welcome to FOBtv, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict, and I want to thank each of you for joining us today. My guest today is Roger Blumberg, Vice President, Corporate and Product Marketing at jaggaer. Thanks for joining us, Roger.
Thanks for having me. Good to meet you.
You know, every day when I get up, I check the news and I'm reading stuff about supply chains nowadays. And you guys are right in the middle of it. So I want to thank you again for joining us and giving us some kind of insight behind the curtains on what's going on in the world of supply chain and its impact as a result of the global pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. So, but before we get into the meat of things, Roger, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background?
Sure, no problem. So I am hard to believe, a 30-year industry veteran. 20 of those years being in what we refer to as the provider space. So I've had leadership roles, typically product management, product marketing at the likes of GE Global Exchange Services, Free Markets, Ariba, Coupa, Pool for Tool, Synertrade, and now jaggaer. So I definitely know this space inside and out, upside and down, and I love it.
That's brilliant. So let's talk about the pronunciation of. Is it jaggaer or jaggaer?
We get that a lot. Yeah, it's jaggaer.
Jaggaer, okay.
Now, if you're in Europe, you may say it a different way, but in the States, we call it jaggaer.
Jaggaer,
So
okay.
Glad we got that out of the way.
Yes, I know. I wanted to get that early on in our discussion. Yeah. So for those of in our audience that might not be aware of the background of jaggaer, why don't you just fill us in?
Not a problem. So first off, we're a 25-year-old company. We're actually having our 25th anniversary this year. We are the largest private provider of spend management solutions. Also, people think of that as procure to pay or source to pay or P2P, if you will. We're really the only one that has the perfect balance of deep direct material support as well as the ability to support indirect spend as well too. We're truly global as well too, over 20 different offices around the globe. That's a little bit about us, supporting some of the world's largest customers in everything from their spend analytics journey, their contract management journey, their e-sourcing journey, their supplier management journey, all the way to their e-procurement, right? Catalog management, requisition workflow, and e-invoicing and payment. We cover the gamut.
Oh, a huge spectrum there. And you've in your background, you've kind of covered just about all the different vendors out there too.
Yeah, there's nothing left. This is the last one, and this is where I'm staying. And I intentionally picked this to be the home that I'm spending. I really believe in the vision of the leadership, and the product is the product that I want to get behind.
That's brilliant. Now, you guys being in that what is it? P2P, procurement to pay.
To pay, correct.
There we go. I wanted to make sure I'm saying that right. So in the procurement to pay space, and you guys, the fact that you guys focus a lot on life sciences, if I understood that right from your website, you guys are in the vortex of the supply chain challenges that have hit the planet as a result of this pandemic and COVID-19.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. So, I mean, our customer base ranges everything from higher education to, as you mentioned, life sciences, manufacturing. We have a really balanced customer base, and you'd be surprised. I mean, universities have been hit equally as hard as, a hardcore manufacturing. I'd say, very few of our customers have not been impacted in one way, shape, or form. Some of them positively, meaning demand has gone up for some of our customers significantly. But again, it's balanced. But somebody has felt an impact at one level, shape, or form.
Oh, I bet. So let's talk about how your job and day-to-day activities change as a result of COVID-19. So here's this tsunami, boom.
Yes.
And how did your role change?
So, when you run a marketing organization, you obviously have to be nimble. And the biggest area of spend and inbound leads, et cetera, come from, in our industry, events and trade shows. And obviously those have been canceled completely. So we had to quickly find opportunities to redirect our spend. Um, Luckily for us, we've already been very strong in the webinar space, and that is probably the most common form of go-to-market these days is webinars. What I'd say we've done is probably ramped up or doubled down, if you will, on our webinar series, adding more topics, pulling in more customers, pulling in more guest speakers. Obviously, a lot of COVID-specific content as well too, because that's obviously a very hot topic. So that's mainly how we've done it. Maybe a little increase in SEO investment, and probably further investment in analyst relationships and partner relationships. Those are the areas that you can control when you don't have conferences to go to.
So when you look at your schedule or your calendaring system before COVID-19 and then after, how did your day change?
Well, no travel. So I was probably 50% travel pre-COVID. So that's probably the biggest change, with that being either on-site customer visits or on-site events or conferences. And so those all had to be taken remotely. I was actually at a customer site, and they told us that we were their last supplier that was allowed in the building, and technically we were 30 minutes past the deadline in terms of when suppliers were no longer allowed in the building. So it's not that we don't want to go on site, although right now we're not allowed to go on site. Customers don't want vendors in their buildings right now.
Yeah.
But everybody has gotten completely comfortable with the notion of remote.
So what tools are you using a lot more of today than you did in the past?
Well, obviously WebEx and Zoom. So that's our we use Microsoft Teams, of which WebEx is part of that as well too. That's our go-to, but our customers use Zoom, and we're happy to use whatever technology. We've all just become well-versed. We all have the apps downloaded, so we're up and running quickly when customer needs to talk to us.
So you're talking about customers. You're talking to customers involved deeply in supply chain and supply chain strategy all day
Absolutely.
long as part of your role.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the big ways you're seeing that COVID-19 impact supply chains?
Yes, so a lot of different areas. Obviously, people are very concerned that their suppliers may not be around or may not survive what's going on right now. So there is a lot of attention focused in using some of our technology to go either A, identify the risk. So I need to know, right? I don't want to be surprised that suddenly somebody just went belly up. I need to be prepared for that. So we have relationships with a lot of great partners that do financial modeling, supply chain risk, corporate social responsibility, all these really interesting data points that will give our customers insights into if something is going to happen to a potential supplier. So insights has been probably the most important thing from an immediate, oh my God, I need to protect myself. The second is exceptional e-sourcing capabilities, which is the ability to, if I lose a supplier, go find quickly a replacement supplier. I'm going to need somebody else that can quickly get up and running for me, and can meet all of my complex requirements. And you can't do that with a quick email and an Excel attachment. You have to use an e-sourcing tool. That's been really powerful. Our customers love, and this is a simple one, but you'd be surprised. With a contract management solution, you can go in and do a keyword search like pandemic, and you can find every contract that you have that has a pandemic clause in it. Right. And so now I know I can get out of this clause because, or I can do this because of a pandemic. In the old days, and when I say old days, for some people that's still the current, they'd have to go flip through every contract and read for that word. Our customers are able to find that clause immediately. And then lastly, people don't go in the office, right? So people still need to be able to do their jobs. And we're really focused on things like enabling electronic invoicing. So nobody has to touch anything anymore. There is no need to open an envelope. Nobody wants to open an envelope. I don't know about you, but when a package comes to my door, I kick it to the curb for a little bit, let it sit there for a few days, and then open it up and find out it was a box of chocolate that melted. But otherwise, yes, nobody wants to touch envelopes anymore. And so, we've developed, basically, think about an electronic inbox where a document comes in, it's automatically opened, it's read, it's properly sorted and placed in the right folder, so that people don't have to review and approve invoices in person. So really, touchless is probably the main theme that's out there for many of our customers.
That's interesting. In our house, when the COVID-19 first hit and there was so much mystery around it, my wife had this whole like bucket and yellow rubber gloves at the front door when packages arrived. She would spray them and wipe them down.
Yep.
Nowadays we've kind of got over that a bit.
Yep.
But
Absolutely. I have on my counter here, I pre-spray a whole counter. When I bring my groceries in, I have the clean side and the dirty side. I'm with there. But really, if we go back to mail, that was a very valid, and it's still a concern. There's not the proof that it doesn't carry on
yeah,
mail. This really accelerated the move to digital, right?
oh
So
yeah,
if you're a supplier and you want to get paid quickly, and you historically were mailing in an invoice, you are much faster now, big or small, at moving to electronic invoicing. Um,
got it. And when you look broadly over the people in their supply chain roles, what are the biggest challenges that they're facing? You talked about risk is a big interest for all of them.
right,
Which of my suppliers are vulnerable to
right.
financial risk right now? But what are some of the biggest challenges that you've heard from your client base, and how are you guys helping them solve that?
Sure. So obviously it's a tough time. I mean, procurement is absolutely taking the lead right now in terms of keeping the lights on and keeping the factories running. And so, I mean, the things that they're telling me, and some of this is going to just be a repeat of what I mentioned before, is they're responsible for being the crystal ball within the organization, right? So they're having to do the research. They're having to quickly understand where are all my pain points well in advance of them actually happening. So they're going to have to predict all of their blind spots, and that's really hard to do. Who is going to fail? Who's not going to be there to support me? What parts and components are going to run into a shortage if I'm a manufacturer, and staging my orders correctly. So I don't want to bring in everything I need to make a car when there's one component that I can't get, and I'm going to be stuck with all of this inventory. And so really, it's a little bit of crystal ball that they're being asked to do, but fortunately, they're being empowered with some insights that they never had before. So procurement is being asked to do more than they've ever been done in their lives. It was similar in 2008, 9-ish time period when, I don't know if you remember, a lot of companies went belly up, and fortunately, there were a lot of lessons learned from that. And as a result, many were prepared for this now. I'm not going to say all of them, trust me. Plenty still learned, that they still have to improve, but a lot were definitely ready for it now. Um, that's probably the biggest one is the need for them to be more all-knowing, if you will, but then being nimble in terms of finding a replacement vendor. So in our world, replacing a vendor is not, a snap of a finger. Particularly in the manufacturing space and life sciences in particular, there's a whole pre-qualification process, right? But thankfully, some of our partners that we connect with, that we plug into our technology, they really accelerate that pre-qualification process. Do they have the right documentation? Do they have the right certification? Have they been vetted from a corporate social responsibility? So the challenge that our customers face is you still have to keep supply chain up and running, but you cannot allow this to be an opportunity to take a chance and bring in a supplier that doesn't meet our needs. We're not going to lower our standards because of this. And that's the balance that they have to strike in terms of keeping the lights on, but not exposing their company in any way, shape, or form.
Got it. So, Roger, as you were speaking there, it occurred to me that it might be valuable to have some kind of a scoring system to be able to score various vendors on their social responsibility, risk factors, the countries they're in, the vulnerabilities they have both to political and tariffs and all different kinds of other influences. How do you guys do that? Is that a vendor thing, or is that something that you guys, a scoring system that you've developed internally?
Sure. So think of us as being, we call it a bring your own data program, where we're the hub of all the data that our customers need to manage their business. So I'm a sourcing professional. I just realized that one of my suppliers, let's just say in China, is shut down for 3 months because of the virus, which many did, and I needed an immediate replacement. I'm going to develop a e-sourcing event, again using electronic e-sourcing tool. I'm going to be able to push it out to 20 suppliers and ask the right questions. When I narrow it down to the ones that I'm serious about, then I'm able to basically bounce those vendors up against our partners, right? So if I think about a company like Ecovitus, they're a partner of ours. They're going to vet that customer from a corporate social responsibility perspective. Now it's up to our customer to say, here's my threshold, right? It needs to have a certain Ecovitus rating in order for me to consider them. And Ecovitus has a very well-defined rating, but our customers define their threshold, if you will, right? We have another partner that is Risk Methods. Risk Methods is supply chain risk. They can tell you if there's going to be a problem getting product from point A to point B. We are, again, going to take live feeds from them on a daily basis, and that's going to cover geopolitical, weather, fires, tornadoes, everything, bankruptcy issues. They're going to be able to fill all that information in and provide a rating as well too. D&B does financial ratings, right? So if they fall below a certain threshold from a financial perspective, should we consider doing business with them? So we call it providing a 360-degree view of your suppliers by taking, as much of this external data, plugging it in and making it available to a sourcing professional on a real-time basis so they can make much faster decisions. This research, if I had to do it independently without these vendors, this is like a 6-month to a 1-year process. People do not have that time right now. I mean, decisions have to be made pretty much on the spot right now.
Fascinating. So, Roger, how do you anticipate strategies within procurement professionals? How do you think their strategies are going to be impacted both in the short term and long term because of COVID-19?
My opinion is that this is probably another lesson learned for procurement, for those that did not have a plan. And again, we do have a lot of customers that already had plans in place that were absolutely spot on, didn't miss a beat. For those that got the lesson learned, I think for them, they are going to work on having a more nimble, if you will, supply chain. One that I think they're also going to write things into their contracts differently as well too, for sure. Because again, many of our customers are in the legal department, and they're saying going forward, we're going to have to pandemic clause in our contracts for sure. And then again, they're going to have to improve their supplier qualification process. They're going to have to rely more on those third-party tools for sure, and probably start taking some of this information serious early on, right? So when something like this happens, many of us knew about it in January. Many did not respond or come up with a plan until March. And so we're seeing a lot of our customers building more of a risk department, if you will, that is starting to glean insights from things like this much, much sooner. And lastly, they're really focusing on how to maintain touchless. How do we further adopt innovations that are out there that don't require me to touch anything, that eliminates the need for human interaction, so that historically manual things are automated. So for us, we're investing in RPA. This is definitely going to accelerate the adoption of RPA. Those manual tasks of opening envelopes, scanning, sorting, et cetera, are going to go away, and they're going to go away a lot faster now. So we have RPA built into AI. Again, AI is going to make decisions for you as well too, and chatbot. So you don't even have to touch your computer. If you are a germaphobe, which there are plenty of germaphobes out there, a germaphobe can talk to their computer the entire time if they want to, walking through our product, asking it to do actions with voice commands. So I truly believe that there will be a rapid acceleration of adoption of these tools in the supply chain area.
Roger, that's all very brilliant. Now let's have you put on your futurist hat.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell me what you're most excited about when you look at emerging technologies and work that you guys are doing there at jaggaer that you're most excited about this year.
Sure. So the term we're using is autonomous procurement. And really, we started off with some basic blocking and tackling of the system, understanding some minor things. If Roger gets an invoice that's under a certain dollar amount, that's within a certain threshold of tolerance, that Roger's always going to accept it. And that's really the beginning. That's artificial intelligence. Autonomous procurement is really now getting into deep insights for you, right? So autonomous procurement is going to be, hey, Roger, just so you know, you're at a good risk of losing some suppliers out there. Maybe we should go write an RFP for you. Here are the vendors that we recommend that we invite for you for that event. Or, oh, by the way, Roger, gas prices or oil prices are going down. You may want to consider renegotiating. So it's going to get into much more strategic insights for you and in strategic recommendations for you. And really, as much as possible, run the event for you. And it'll be category specific. It'll be industry specific. It'll be, it'll know how to manage different industries, geographies, commodities, etc. And really allow the supply chain and the procurement and the sourcing professional to focus on much more strategic tasks and really remove themselves from any manual intervention whatsoever. That's what I'm excited about. Yeah.
That's brilliant and exciting. Matter of fact, just this morning, Roger, I was writing an article about competitive decision making and how leaders need to be supported with AI on these minor decisions to get those off the plate and then have AI support the major decisions in a much more automated way where the AI systems have foresight into what the decision maker needs. So that's brilliant. I'm writing about it. You guys are doing it. I love it.
We're doing it. Yep. Again, it went from the basic decision making to really insightful, thoughtful strategy recommendations. That's been the biggest improvement, and it's just going to get better.
So, Roger, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experience and what you're viewing from your position with all of us today. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Kevin.